You bring back a lot of memories with that basketball business. I'll have to confess right off that that was back when you could be short and slow. And I was both. But we actually played in the Macon City Auditorium for that championship game, and I'll never forget it because we played Valley Point. And Valley Point was right up here by Dalton, somewhere in this neighborhood. I'm not sure exactly where the school was, probably you all know, but I remember the best player they had, who was really, really a good one, was a guy named Billy Pelfrey. And I've run into Billy over the last 50 years, 2 or 3 times. I think he passed away a couple of years ago. But I remember it so well because they had been undefeated. And we were undefeated except one game. We had lost one game. So we came into the game heavily, I guess heavily underdog. And we did manage to win it, but I'll never forget that. It was a big night for us. Joe, thank you and Ross for putting this group together. Joe and I've been friends for a long time. His brother Jack Ragland has been one of our dear friends, Jack and Gloria. We just lost Gloria very sadly, but the Raglands are great folks, and they cover Middle Georgia and North Georgia pretty well now. So it's terrific being with you. I love being up in the mountains. I love being here in this change of year. This is just a wonderful, wonderful time. And all of you, I know, give thanks every day for being able to live in this part of the world. It's something really special. I thought I'd just take on a couple of 2 or 3 questions that I get asked, because we're coming down to the wire in this campaign. We've got another 4 or 5 days to go. It's a very close race. I think the question is going to be turnout. In football, they would say you get down to 3 yards of a cloud of dust. That's where we are now. It's getting people out to vote. It's making sure that people who are going to vote for Michelle get out to vote. I hope everybody votes, whether they're going to vote for her or not, because these candidates have been out there for a year really, really working hard. And it's almost like a war to be able to survive it. I have tremendous admiration for all the candidates, for every office, because it's always difficult in public office, but it's particularly difficult now because we have so much divisiveness in our country. And we've got to find a way to disagree on things in our country and yet come together. Ross mentioned about the Democratic Leadership Council. We actually formed that in a period of time where the Democratic Party had gone too far left, in our opinion. So a bunch of us who were pragmatic, common sense, sort of independent thinkers got together and formed the Democratic Leadership Council. This was after the 1984 election. And out of that came a foundation of people all over the country who were thinking the same thing, Democrats. And out of that, Bill Clinton, I handed him the gavel when I was the chairman of the Democratic Leadership Council. I was about the 3rd chairman after Chuck Robb and Dick Gephardt, and I handed Bill Clinton the gavel as the 4th chairman, and he did a terrific job and laid the foundation for his presidential run with that core. I don't want to tell the Republican Party how to run that business, but I would say they do well since they have gone so far right in so many areas to have their own leadership council that gets back to good old common sense, because this country really has to be governed from the middle. The left and the right play their roles, but when the 2 wings are flapping and the fuselage is missing, the middle is missing, you can't get agreements. It's a gridlock. It's a gridlock. Someone asked former Secretary of Defense Bob Gates, and I was there in the audience, this was about a year ago, but he said it many times. What was the biggest security problem we faced in the nation, that our nation faced? And he said, well, it's not Iran, it's not North Korea, it's not Russia, it's not ISIS, it's dysfunction in Washington. We're sapping the confidence of our businesses, and we're sapping the confidence of our job creators, we're sapping the confidence of our people with our dysfunction in Washington, because we are not addressing the long-term problems that this nation must face. And I got to thinking about that, and I think he's absolutely right. He also said, and I think this is right, that when people abroad who would be our adversaries, whether it's North Korea or Iran or some other country, or ISIS as we see in the Middle East now, when they see the United States federal government not being able to work together and get along, they say, well, if I got a scratch, if I got an itch, this is a pretty good time to scratch it. In other words, doing things that jeopardize security of the region, security of the nation. So if you look at the biggest challenge we face, in my view, in this country now, to restore our economy, to get job growth back, to get confidence back, and to really do the kind of job we have to do as a leader in the world, is really to restore a center in Washington that can work together. Now, I'm always amazed what comes out in the campaign, but when Michelle's Republican opponent got the nomination, he said that his top priority was to prosecute President Obama. Prosecute, that was the exact word he used. Now, I understand people disagreeing with the president. I understand people that are Democrats. I understand people who say that, you know, there are things he's done that I don't agree with. I don't think we face the long-term debt problem. There are other things he's done. I don't think we ought to be cutting the defense budget now. Michelle said that over and over again, by the way. This is not the time to be cutting the defense budget, and we are. But we only have one president at the time. I remember when I got to Washington in 1972, this was a very troubled period. My first term in Washington, I served with 3 presidents, my first 6 years. And that's the Senate term, 6 years. I served with 3 presidents and 4 vice presidents. It was a difficult time. I went to the White House with 3 or 4 or 5 other people on at least 4 occasions while Nixon was president and while he was in the process of being impeached. But we only had one president at a time, and we had a crisis in Asia. We had a crisis in Vietnam. You have to work with the president even when you disagree. What Michelle has said in her campaign, and I totally identify with, and I think she's absolutely right, I'm going to work with every president. The first 3 years of her term, if she gets elected, she's going to have to serve with 2 presidents. It won't just be President Obama, it'll be 2 presidents, because he's got only 2 more years. So when I hear her opponents say his top priority is to prosecute the president, I feel like saying, hey, David, it's a 6-year term. He's going to be gone in 2. What are you going to do the other 4 years? You know, if you see the television, that's all it is about Michelle and Obama. But Georgia, fortunately, I think the majority of people recognize the history of our state and elected senators. And they understand that we have a long-term investment when we elect a United States senator. It's a 6-year term. If they do a good job, and if they don't, we ought to kick them out. But if they do a good job, you usually elect them at least once or twice more. And you look back at Walter George, you look back at Herman Talmadge, you look back at Richard Russell. I served 24 years. That's been one of the strengths of our state, because we really do tend to keep people in Washington longer, and they build up seniority. Phil Landrum was a good example. He had tremendous credibility. When I went to Washington, he had as much credibility virtually as anybody in the House of Representatives. It's not just seniority, it's credibility. And it's knowledge. It's a complicated world out there, and we have a lot of complexities. And basically, I think this election really comes down to, do you want to prosecute or do you want to problem solve? If you want to prosecute somebody to go up and prosecute the president for the next 2 years, then you got that choice. Michelle has spent 25 years of her life helping people, building communities. She deeply cares about people. She knows the government can't do everything. She believes in volunteers. She believes in getting people mobilized. She believes in having the private sector work with the public sector. She believes that's the way you create jobs. She believes that's the way you create communities. And she also believes in listening to other people. You know, whether you're on a PTA meeting, whether you're on a PTA meeting, a church meeting, or whether you're on a city council, or whether you're a county commission, whatever you are, how many times do you get everything you want? How many times do you just walk in and say, here's what we're going to do, folks, and have 8 people agree with you? It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way our government was designed. The other thing that I was amazed at seeing, this is just in the last 4, 5, 6 days, is her opponent says that he is not going to fit in the Senate. He's not going to fit in. Well, you know, you can say that, I guess, if you're a chief executive of a company, but it's a pretty big difference. If you're a chief executive of a company and you want to get a dividend increase, you go to a small board and you tell them, and 99% of the time they agree. Or if you want a stock buyback, then you tell them, yeah, they usually agree. If you want to fire somebody, you don't have to get permission from the board. You just do it. If you want to outsource, which we've heard a lot about, which her opponent has done a lot of in his career, put jobs overseas, then you just do it. That isn't the way it works in the United States Senate. You got to convince, if you're on a committee, you got to convince the majority of the committee to bring a bill out. When a bill comes out, you got to present it on the floor. And you have to convince 50 senators to vote for it, 51 senators. If it's something that is very controversial, you got to convince 60 because there's usually going to be a filibuster. And then after you get that done, you got to get the House of Representatives. You got to go over and talk to people in the House. You got to make friends in the House. And you got to get them to pass the same bill. Those of you, I know everybody knows in the civics class, to have a law presented to the president, it's got to be the same word, every word that's got to be passed by the House and Senate. You got to have the same I's in the same places, the same T's crossed. That's the only way you pass a bill. And once you persuade your colleagues in the House and Senate to pass it, you got to get the president to sign it. There's no bill that becomes law without the president signing it. So how do you say you're going to get things done for the state of Georgia? And how do you say you're going to do anything about gridlock in Washington if your basically platform is you're going to prosecute the president and you're going to make sure you don't fit in the Senate? I don't know what fit in means. Maybe you get something else. Certainly it doesn't mean going along with Harry Reid because fitting in means being independent, common sense. But it does mean working with other people. It does mean listening to other people. You know, I got a kick out of the argument that if Michelle goes to Washington, she's going to be under the thumb of Harry Reid. In the spring of 2013, she was asking me, she doesn't ask me about a lot of things, she asked me about what my view was about her running, and I told her all the good things and all the bad things about public service and what she faced. But then she got a phone call, and the phone call was from the majority leader of the Senate, Harry Reid, the one you hear so much about now. And lo and behold, Harry Reid said to her, Michelle, we don't want you to run. We got somebody else in mind. And if you run, we're going to oppose you with money and with everything we can do. And she, on the phone, that's pretty strong medicine when you're even just thinking about running. So she thought for about 5 seconds and said, Mr. Leader, I respect you, said, but that's my decision, and it's a decision of the people of Georgia. So thank you very much for my view. Within a week, she announced. So basically, she has already learned to say no to Harry Reid. That doesn't mean that you don't have to get along in the Senate. You do have to get along. I personally, and this is my personal view, not anybody else's view, my personal view is time for leadership on both sides of that. When you basically see the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, saying right after President Obama gets elected, he hadn't done the thing. He said his top priority was to basically get rid of President Obama. How do you make institutions work like that? Our founding fathers wanted all sorts of checks and balances. They didn't want the House, the representatives, who has the authority to initiate all appropriation bills. They didn't want them to dominate. They wanted another body. They didn't want a unicameral legislature. They wanted a Senate to check the House. They didn't want the Senate to dominate. They wanted the House to check the Senate. That's the reason you got to pass a law in both bodies. And they didn't want the Congress to dominate, so they wanted a strong executive. They wanted the president to be able to veto bills, which he does. But they didn't want the president to be able to veto everything without a check and balance on that. So they basically said, well, Congress can override the veto with 2/3 vote in the House and Senate. And then, lo and behold, they didn't want the Congress and the president to run everything, so they created a Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, sometimes to our chagrin, can rule things unconstitutional that really outlaws the laws in both directions. So what am I saying? I'm saying this government was not intended to be a company. It wasn't intended to have a CEO. It wasn't intended to have anything that would even smack of dictatorship. It wasn't intended that way. It was intended with checks and balances, no runaway power. And when I see people that say they aren't going to compromise, or they're going to prosecute, or when they say that, I'm going to go and deliberately not, quote, fit in, then I say, what are we thinking about? And why do we have dysfunction? Well, we do have fixed dysfunction in Washington. It is dangerous. It's costing us jobs. It's costing us in our economy. And it's jeopardizing, in many respects, our position in national security. We've got to work together to tackle the long-term debt. We've got to work together. We got 11 million illegal immigrants. How are you going to get rid of them? You're going to go all round them up, send them home one day? Who's going to do that? You got to have a working together to figure out how to deal with this problem. There's no easy answers on it. We've got to get our medical costs under control. We're blessed with tremendous medical technology, but we've got to find ways to save money. We can't pass all this down to the next generation. So there are all sorts of things we've got to do. Michelle has come out strongly for boosting the minimum wage, feeling that people right now, in 1968, people at the lowest end of the economic scale is minimum wage, but we're making it more in 1968 than they're making now. So there are things we've got to do and we've got to do together. So my bottom line to all of you is thank you for being here. Thank you for being interested in the political process. As far as the election is concerned, I think it's going right down the wire. I think it's very, very close. If we get a voter turnout that's very close to anything like a presidential election turnout, if we do, then I think Michelle will win without a runoff. If we get a turnout that's just like 2010 when there was a presidential election, it's going to be very, very close. It'll be very close. So the thing, people ask me what they can do in the last stages. I think the main thing is talk to your neighbors, get everybody you know to go vote. And it's even better if they're going to vote Democratic, but if they're not, even then, I want them to vote. Because the candidates really get out there and they deserve that. So I say in closing that we got 3 ways to vote now. In some places we may even still have early voting or Sunday voting, but we've got early voting still, I believe, for a couple more days in most of the state. We've got absentee ballot, and we've got the election on November the 4th. So my plea to you is vote, vote, vote. And in case the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, is listening, I'm not saying that any person should vote 3 times. What I'm saying is there are 3 opportunities to vote, and I hope you will do that. Joe showed me a message this morning from one of his friends. What is his name?
Floyd Franklin.
Floyd Franklin has personally called 84 people. 84 people. If everybody in this room will call even 15 or 20 people in the next 3 or 4 days and urge them to go vote and put in a good word for Michelle, I think we're going to win this election. And it would really be a message not just to Georgia, it's most important for Georgia. It's a message to the country, because unless we elect Democrats and Republicans, both, that are willing to listen, willing to try to find common ground and willing to work together, we're going to continue to function in Washington, and it's going to cost us in our economy and our jobs and our security. So we've got to elect people with common sense. We've got to elect people who are independent-minded. We've got to elect people who are willing to work on both sides of the aisle. I know for a fact that Michelle is going to do all of that if she gets elected. So thank you, and I appreciate everything about coming out this morning. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, Senator Nunn, thank you for coming to LJ. Secondly, you know the rough and tumble of politics and getting elected. But how does it feel to you personally when you see your daughter getting attacked, your own flesh and blood?
I'm not watching much TV these days. I tell you, when you're out there as a candidate, you got a way of releasing the emotion, and the valves don't blow off completely. But when you're a father watching that, and there are, what, now $8 million worth of negative ads on her from outside groups, we got really something wrong, not just because of this election, but the money is out of control. The independent expenditures are out of control. People can come in and spend $2 million against you and not even say who they are. Something, we got to do something. Parties are going to have to work together. This is a road to confidence of people in their own government. So I'm not watching much television these days.
Thank you.
But it's pretty tough. My son played, our son, Colleen's a big part of all this. Our son played in 7 overtime basketball games his senior year. I didn't think I was going to live through it. This is worse. Yes, sir.
I think one of the problems is redistricting, that the districts are engineered so that they're all for one party or one group of people. Do you see any changes in the way that they can restrict the redistricting? Don't they do it like every 10 years or something?
Well, that's when they redistrict every 10 years based on the census. That's correct. They do it at the state level and the national level. I agree with you 100%. I think you're absolutely right. Actually, this Democrat, unfortunately, was the one who started this way back in the 1980s. It was out in California because they got the computers and they were able with computers to know where people were. And they drew the districts according to how people were going to vote. Got away from the economic. Then the Republicans started doing it, and then both parties started doing it. And now the districts are being drawn in a way that's not coherent. It doesn't make sense. And what it does, it creates about 80% of the House districts are safe districts. If you're a Republican in the House of Representatives today, the only thing you have to worry about is not letting anybody get more conservative, more to the right than you are. If you're a Democrat, the only thing you have to worry about is getting beat in the primary. Don't let anybody get to my left. So you got the whole incentive system we've created in districts is to go as far left and right as you can. That's what I say. We've hollowed out the middle. We've hollowed out the goodwill, the civility, that sort of thing.
Do you see anything breaking the law again?
The thing that is beginning to is states. This has got to be done at the state level. California, I hate to use them as an example. They sometimes lead the way in the wrong direction, but California has a congressional redistricting and legislative redistricting panel. And I don't know whether it's federal judges, it's independent people. It's not people in the political process. And my understanding, you'd have to check this out because I'm not absolutely sure on it. My understanding is they present a recommendation to the legislature, and the legislature has to vote up or down.
But the judicial department, they say whether it's okay or not.
I don't think it's the judicial, I think it's retired judges, an independent panel. I don't think it's been kicked over into the judicial, because the judicial branch has said over and over again, this is a legislative mess and we're not going to untangle it. Unless it just gets completely out of whack. But right now, that commissioning is probably the best bet. I tell you the other thing I think we need to start thinking about is what I call open primaries. Now this has to be examined carefully because anything like this has two edges, and I'm not there yet, but I think California's done this, Louisiana's done it. It's where everybody goes in and gets a ballot, you vote for whoever you want to. Republicans and Democrats vote the same primary. The top two run off. If it happens to be two top Democrats, so be it. What you do is you get more voter turnout. You get a broader election. You get away from the polarization of it. It's worth looking at. But those are two of our biggest problems. And the other one is the money in the campaigns. And I don't have an answer to that one because the Supreme Court's gotten involved. They've declared in one of the Supreme Court decisions that a corporation is a person, is a human being. With the whole Bill of Rights, the first course I had in law school was that a corporation is an artificial entity created by the state legislature and it can be abolished. You can abolish all corporations. How can they be human beings? So that decision has really clouded any kind of campaign finance.
And the president took a beating when he made that speech to the State of the Union about the Supreme Court passing a law that they changed for 75 years. He took a beating over that, but look what happened.
I think you're seeing the result of that in the monies in these campaigns now.
Absolutely.
It's really, again, I don't have a good answer to it, but it's out of control. So I think the money part of it, we all got to scratch our head. Both parties have a stake. When I talk to Republican friends, they feel the same way I do. They may not say it publicly. They feel the same way I do. It's gotten way too much money, way out of control. Too much undisclosed people coming in. Who knows what their motives are? $4 or $5 million. Michelle has been outspent by outside groups, not her own campaign. Her own campaign, she's raised as much money as more than her opponent has. She's gotten over 60,000 contributions. Somebody said to me the other day, you never got that many contributions in 24 years. I said, I didn't get that many votes. but the point is, those outside groups, she's been outspent 2 or 3 to 1. So whether it's a Democratic outside group or a Republican outside group, I don't think it's healthy.
I don't want to keep people too long, but I have another question. I heard a Republican strategist on television yesterday, and the plan seems to be, somebody asked him, what is the difference if the Republicans take over control of the Senate? They would be in the same position as they are now. the Democrats are in charge and they can't get nothing done. If the Republicans take over and in charge, the Democrats can do the same things that they're doing now and won't get nothing done. But the guy said, well, what happens is what happened to Clinton. When both houses are controlled by the opposite party, it forced Clinton to triangulate, to give in and get things done. Do you see that that could happen to Obama? If the Republicans have both houses?
Not if you've got the same kind of attitude among the Republicans reflected by what Mitch McConnell said to begin with, that his chief role is to get rid of Obama, and not if you have the kind of platform that Michelle's opponent has, which is going up there to prosecute the president. That just doesn't work. I know what he's talking about, but there was a different attitude then. I mean, Newt Gingrich, I disagree with you on a lot of things. I was always able to sit down with you and find a way to deal with it. You know, he'd go out and have some kind of very strong rhetoric, but to make it a deal, he could make a deal. Clinton could deal with you. You don't have that. You don't have that.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have that. I'll tell you this, though. Here's the way I see it, because you're heading the same direction as where I am. I don't think the central question in this election is control of the Senate. Because I don't think, as you mentioned, nobody controls the Senate unless you have a middle, unless you have people on both sides of the aisle to work together, because you got to get 60 votes to break the filibuster.
I personally don't think that they're going to take it anyway. That's my opinion.
Whether it's the Democrats in control or the Republicans in control, unless you've got that middle that are willing to work together, which we always had, we kind of took it for granted. We had, you know, two of my good friends in the Republicans have given Michelle contributions, John Warner and Dick Lugar. And I said a number of times, I never passed a major piece of legislation in my 24 years without a Republican Party. But we had a middle. We were able to work together. So unless you have that middle, neither Harry Reid nor Mitch McConnell are going to be able to, quote, control the Senate. So, you know, they may be able to appoint committees, but not break the logjam on major legislation. So we got to have that middle, and it can't just be Michelle Nunn in Georgia's election. I think this is a good place to start it, but it's got to be all over the country. It's got to happen. It's going to happen in several election cycles. The people have got to be able to say, yes, I'm going to listen to the other side. Yes, I'm willing to compromise, and I'm going to work to keep my values. I'm going to oppose the president when I think he's wrong and support him when I think he's right. But you can't just go up there and say, if it's a Republican idea, it's terrible, throw it in the trash can. Or if it's a Democratic idea, throw it in the trash can. That's what they're doing now. We got a Senate full of prosecutors.
And we're a war.
We don't need a government.
And we're a war.
Yeah. We got dangers all over the world. We got serious problems. But also, let me end on a note of optimism. If we do get our government functioning, I'm more optimistic about America than I have been in the last 30 years. We've got, with our natural gas prices now, we pay about 20% our manufacturers for gas as compared to Europe and Japan and Asia. We've got huge competitive advantages in energy. It's going to start bringing back, not like we had it in the old days, we're going to start seeing more manufacturing jobs come back. We got the best higher education system in the world. People all over the world want to get in here to go to higher education. We've got the best research and development in the world. We're out in front of one thing after another, the whole information technology thing. We are leading the way in biotechnology. We got all sorts of things coming that are going to revolutionize medical, where we can not only live longer, live healthier, but also afford to pay for it without having our younger generation with a burden they can't bear. We're going to have medical technology that's unbelievable. I've got one small company I'm associated with in California. This young lady, she's now 30 years old, is Theranos. There's been some publicity on it. 1 drop of blood instead of 3 vials of blood. Older people that have trouble with their brains, kids that are frightened to death of needles. 1 drop of blood. The device is the laboratory. They're running around with nanotechnology. Out comes the outcome without ever going to a laboratory. No vials, no shipments, no trucks, no confusion, and it's a break. It's going to save like 70–80% of Medicare and Medicaid blood costs testing. And it's going to enable testing in hospitals. We lose 50,000 people a year, staff disease in hospitals. That's how many people die. It's going to enable hospitals to test people before they come in because they can afford it. It's not going to be the technology as much as it is the affordability. Tests are going to be so much cheaper. They're going to be able to test them while they're there and test them when they leave. So, I mean, this is just one example. We're on the verge of a tremendous era. And I think we have every reason to be optimistic if we just get our act together in Washington. By getting people who go to Washington and say, hey, let's figure out this. That's what we're elected for. Election's over. Let's work together. Let's help people. Let's solve problems.
Yeah, but the president now has the gas prices down so low that the oil companies can't make money. So we have to raise their subsidies. They don't make a profit.
Oh, the oil companies are going to
That's Obama's fault, getting the gas prices down.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, I see what you're heading at. Yeah, I think the oil companies.
He did it again. I mean,
I think the oil companies will survive.
so we're going to have to raise their.
It's like $600, the price of gasoline coming down like it has. It's not going to stay this low in my opinion. It may be for another 6 months or a year. We enjoy it while we can, but it's right now the equivalent of $600 per home tax cut. So that's what it is per household in America. That's a huge infusion to our economy. So I'm optimistic about America. That's my bottom line.
Me too.
Let's get on that.
I always say, we went through the 60s, we go through anything. Anybody that was alive in the 60s.